that's right, folks. You know what time it is. It's been way too long. We left you without dope things to step to. I apologize. But I'm back in the building. So, you heard it. We are lighting a cigar. We are pouring, excuse me, purring. We are pouring a wonderful um, cashew apple distilled Feni from the Goa region of India. I believe it's called Kazkan Feni. I learned recently that if you take this, put it with delicious citrus-based soda, or you can go standard and go Cokes, Pepsis, that kind of stuff. I like to do the citrus-based soda, a little bit of grapefruit juice, and I'm good to go. Who am I? I am the Ruthless Wonder, not a Ruthless Wonder. And you are, of course, back on the Wrath of Ruthless. I know, folks, it's been too long. It's been 2 months since our last show, basically. Of course, we take vacation for December and part of January. We did some putting of things together. So I do want to get into that. Welcome back, folks. I do love y'all. I missed y'all. I am not a cat. I know. But I want to thank y'all for coming back to us. It has been too long. I want to give a shout out to, of course, the folks we've said goodbye to. Of course, some folks know that we said goodbye to Brittany over the course of the break. Shout out to her. She's doing some big things. She's going to have her own podcast coming up here soon. So be on the lookout for that. We'll get you more info when that's coming up. Of course, that is not the only change going on around here. There are a number of changes, and we're going to get into those here in a second. But of course, I do want to quickly say, rest in peace to your Donald Ventura, and my thoughts and prayers are with his family. At the beginning of the week, we found out that he, in fact, died during a car crash in the Dominican Republic. His funeral was during the course of the week as well. Numerous players for the Royals turned out, including Salvador Perez. They honored him at the Fan Fest this week as well for the Royals. And it seems that the Royals are trying to determine right now what to do regarding honoring him during the season as well. I know personally I would like to see his number 30, retired. But it is a sad thing for all of us here in Kansas City. A good buddy of mine he lives in the Houston area, originally from New Orleans, is honoring him with his Etsy shop. He does a wonderful job creating these paracord-based bracelets. You'll hear about that in the full version of the show that'll come out on Monday. He's a great guy. We'll talk more about the bracelets with him, but he is doing a special one for your Donald Ventura, and we'll show you some photos of that during that day as well. And like I said, full version of the show comes out on Monday. I know what you're saying. What do you mean full version of the show? Isn't this the full version of the show? Not anymore. I told you we had changes coming. So I have made some changes to the show. You're going to be seeing the Wrath of Ruthless in a 1-hour format on Saturdays here live, but a full version will appear with all of our new segments on Mondays. So what does this mean? Well, it's like this. The Wrath of Ruthless is a great show concept. Going solo with the production myself does mean some changes to how we produce the show. So instead of doing the full show live stream only on Saturdays, we're actually pre-recording segments to go into each week's show. That means that you all will get a special live portion only on Saturdays that will be added to the Monday show, but the live portion will not be the same every week. What's this new format? Why is he doing this? Check out the new format. So you're going to get a live one. That means you may get a live all Wrath of Ruthless segment. You may get a live Give No Quarter segment. You may get a live Words Don't Do It Justice segment. You may even get a live We call it the side piece discussions now, where we're just kind of talking about some weird thing, me and a friend having a cool conversation, kind of an after hours, after dark kind of setup. You may get that, any one of those, live on a Saturday, and then on that Monday, you'll have all of the recorded sessions that we've done for the show for that week presented to you. So I know you've heard the name Give No Quarter before. Of course, people remember Words Don't Do It Justice, and you've been watching The Wrath of Ruthless for months now. None of those are going away. Instead, we've found a way to combine those into a single The Wrath of Ruthless show with the segments Give No Quarter and Words Don't Do It Justice being added to it. That means every week you will get some rant from me about a subject, a deep dive into something. Coming up this week, we're going to talk about the various protests and whatnot. I'm going to talk about it in more detail. I'm going to give you a little snippet of this at the beginning of Give No Quarter because I know you missed that kind of stuff. But the majority of my talking on social events going on in our country, social, not political, social events, is going to be kept to the Wrath of Ruthless segment, and Give No Quarter is going to be focused on politics like the show is meant to. That doesn't mean that we're not going to have guests. In fact, the Imperial Dream series is going to keep going forward with additional pieces. What it does mean instead is that those are going to be more focused, put into a single weekly product that everyone can check out at once, so you don't have to keep looking for the different videos to drop at different times. Mondays, just like the old days when I was blogging, Mondays will be the day the show appears in its full form. So I do hope you guys enjoy the new format. I'm excited about the new format. I think you guys will enjoy it. Now, this week, your free, it was not free, everything's free. The live segment for this week is going to be Give No Quarter because we have a ton of political news to get to this week. And I want to definitely make sure that you get a chance to deal with that. Before we get to that, I do want, of course, thank my big brother, Chris Williams, for constantly inspiring me, even though he doesn't always know it. He has spent most of 2016 and obviously so far all of 2017 waiting in a hospital for a transplant. But he did something that I didn't expect him to do. He started Facebook Living, talking about his thoughts, showing his workouts. He is the heart warrior. And I know he's probably somewhere watching the show right now. And I just want to say, big bro, I love you. And I want to say thank you for inspiring me more than you could ever know. Folks, you know, I'm not going to get deep into my family dynamic, but, like I said, my big brother has always been a big, like, point of pride for me, even though, we never really got to spend the kind of time together that most people who have siblings do. We're not going to get into that. But I want to shout him out. Check him out on Facebook, Chris Thor Williams. You can find him from my friends list if you have my friends list. And sometimes I share his videos on the Wrath of Ruthless and the Ruthless Wonder page. That's the Ruthless Wonder, not A Ruthless Wonder. I do want to give a shout out to our friends over at Geek Street Radio. Great folks. Their fearless leader, the Bobo, is over at San Antonio, Texas for NXT and the Royal Rumble this weekend. Shout out to him. So I want to thank him for that. Now, I do want to do, before we get to this week's show content, I do want to, in the form of supporting good friends of mine, I do want to make sure I give them some other friends some really cool bumps. The first of which is my friend Ashley. Ashley Jones Rivers, Ashley Jones Music, over on Instagram. She did this really cool thing I want to show it to you guys real quick here.
Well, I had me a boy, turned him into a man. I showed him all the things that he didn't understand. Whoa. And then I let him go. Now there's one in California who's been cursing my name, 'cause I found me a better lover in the UK. Hey. Until I made my getaway. 2, 3, they're gonna run back to me. Like I'm the best baby that they never gotta keep. 1, 2, 3, they're gonna run back to me. They always wanna come, but they never wanna leave. X's and the O's, they haunt me like ghosts. They want me to make them all. They won't let go. X's and O's.
So, shout out to Ashley. She's awesome. One of the infamous UMKC lifetime of Matt Williams friends. Used to be resident assistants way back in the day. Why anyone ever had me in charge of anything? But shout out to Ashley. She's awesome. So that brings us out. Now the shout outs are done. You guys know about the new format. That brings us to an important part of the show. I told you guys each week you get a different live segment. This week's live segment, well, it needs no introduction, but I want to thank, of course, friend of the show, Keith LaBelle, for the Wrath of Ruthless music, Bring It. But I want to thank my good cousin Simon Williams, not from my dad's side of the family, very weird thing there. I want to thank Simon Williams for, of course, the intro to the segment of segments.
Give no quarter. Give no quarter. Give no quarter. Give no quarter.
Oh, that's right. Give no quarter. So, as folks know, give no quarter is an important part of the evolution of Where's Unto Justice and the Wrath of Ruthless. It is important to me that we deal with these issues of politics in America and indeed the world in a serious fashion. It is important to me that I'm professional in the way I handle it. But before I get into a very ruthless segment on the issues currently dealing around the arrival of the President Donald Trump, I want to get to something that's very important. You see this photo up here? See it saying, "Screw it, I'll do it." Hashtag Black women. Yeah. I saw this on, of course, my former co-host there, Brittany's page. And it's a sad state of affairs when we need white men out here big upping black women and reminding the world of their contributions. I remember a time, and I'm not that old, when we handled internal issues between black men and black women and how we relate and interact with each other internally inside the community, while showing the world a united face that fought for our rights collectively. And frankly, it sickens me that that has changed. We used to fight to get civil rights for us. Together. Too often I see this communication between members of our community stripped down to the stereotypes, the generalizations, the slurs, the demeaning descriptions and depictions and rhetoric that was used against us collectively. Dividing and conquering is a tactic that I see too many of us fall for. If anything and anyone can be said for advocating that there needs to be a conversation about how we deal with each other, about how we interact with each other, indeed about how we date and relate to each other, certainly it cannot be argued that I have shown how outspoken I am on the topic and how much I believe that that discourse needs to help for the health and growth of our community, for indeed all communities of color. But make absolutely no mistake, I proudly support black women as advocates and activists. I will always call out those who claim to be for the advancement of our people, but are hostile to any work on the lives and rights of black trans, black queer, black LGBTQA+, black children, black men, and damn sure black women. But you know me. You know how I approach these things. So just like I require of myself, I require all men, but especially black men, because as Rain has said over and over again, you need to do more and require better. It sickens me that the idea of this man saying that black women essentially have helped prop up not only this community, but this country at every point through its existence have been met with the vitriolic statements and indeed attacks that he has. That the idea that someone outside of the community has to become the face of appreciating black women is disgusting to me. And all of you hoteps and you faux blacks and all of you people who are out here saying, well, I think black women should do this and do that. No, you don't get to make that decision now, because we have spent too much time trying to get things better in this country for you to hold back a community because your ego is bruised by someone else who has the same qualifications as you not getting to come to the forefront because they aren't the same gender as you. It's bullshit, and you know it. And the fact that I have to talk about this publicly on Facebook before bringing it on this show is ridiculous. I should have been the last person that had to bring this up when this photo popped up. I should not have to cover this at all. This shouldn't even be a question. But you weak-minded idiots and dolts, you knaves. Let me calm down. You are the reason why there is not the progress we should have in this country. You are the reason why we have to deal with people like President Trump. It is your fault because you couldn't see past your masculinity. You think that having a woman in any way in charge of anything is a threat to your masculinity. And that shows how absolutely weak you really are. So I just wanted to get that off top because I was mad when I posted this. I am mad now talking about it. But that's it for that. I'm done. I think you guys know my position on things. And I dare you to do better. I dare you to be more. But the anger's not over with people. No. We're not done here. I want to get to something that also got on my nerves this week. And that is, of course, the state of the Democratic Party. You know what I'm saying? But Matt, you're not really a Democrat. I know. I am not a Democrat at all. In fact, I came to vote in the party because Bernie Sanders was running for president. I was very much into the idea of Bernie saving this country from going off the brink of destruction. I believed that there was a new thing occurring. I truly thought that the Democrats might actually do something to make life better, not just for themselves, but for everyone. I looked out at this election. I saw faces and names. Elizabeth Warren, Cory Booker. These were not the same standard Democrats. These were new Democrats, they said. That their support for people like Hillary Clinton against Donald Trump was only about making sure that Trump was defeated. But Elizabeth Warren had been doing things that disturbed me at the beginning. You'll recall that before the election season started. So we're talking all the way back when people were announcing. All the way back at the beginning of 2015. I was saying I wanted Elizabeth Warren to run for president. And people said, why? Why do you want Elizabeth Warren? I said, because I think she will actually go forward and take us forward to do things. It turned out Bernie Sanders was ready to hop on that. And I've waited patiently for the day that Elizabeth Warren would convert all of those internal Democrats to Bernie-crats who would bring the party towards Bernie Sanders so that we would go forward. Because we saw what Hillary Clinton was. We saw that she was a corporatist Democrat who was, in fact, not really a Democrat. She came to the party from the Republicans. See, I came to the party for Bernie. She came to the party because she realized she couldn't win as a Republican, married to a Democrat like Bill Clinton. Go ahead and look that one up. It's a well-known story. She's a Goldwater girl. Anyway, and she's proud of it, still. Anyway, we saw the Democrats handily defeated. You might say, well, but he didn't win the popular vote. Like, yes. But as anyone who actually studied political science knows, the presidential elections, and in fact all elections, are not really based on how popular the candidate is, but rather, can they strategically get the votes they need in the districts and states that they need to get to that golden number. And just like in Missouri, how Republicans aren't supposed to be that popular. The country itself says conservative ideas when it comes to governance tend to leave so many people behind they shouldn't be popular. But indeed, they still win elections. Why is that? Because of Democrats like Elizabeth Warren. See, she talks a big game when it is advantageous to talk a big game. She comes after people when it's advantageous to come after people. And you may be saying, Matt, you're turned entirely 180 on her. I sure as hell have. Here's why. So, Elizabeth Warren this past week, along with Sherrod Brown out of Ohio, both voted to confirm Ben Carson as the Secretary of Housing and Urban Development. Now you may be saying, but didn't she go after Carson during his confirming hearings? Yes, in fact she did. In fact, she got him to admit that he had no relevant experience to being Secretary of Housing and Urban Development. Oh, but she voted for him anyway. In fact, she then tried to backtrack with a statement that I won't even repeat because I'm still pissed off about it. Now, you may be saying, but Matt, that's just one Democrat. That's not an epidemic of failure. Of course it is. You see, prior to that, Cory Booker, Maria Cantwell, and Bob Casey. That's Democrats from New Jersey, Washington, and Pennsylvania, respectively, as well as 10 other Democratic senators, voted to block an amendment proposed by Bernie Sanders to lower drug prices by allowing for Canadian imports of drugs to the U.S. That means they were here saying, okay, fine, we know the situation. We understand that Americans are hurting. We understand that you are afraid that the ACA will be repealed after Donald Trump has not only said he's going to do it, but is already saying that he's going to do an executive order for the repeal. And in fact, later this week did, in fact, bring forth that executive order. Despite all that, even though we know we could do some very interesting things to kind of help you out on one end or another, we don't want to do that. And I know what you're thinking, why? Why in the world did they do this to the American people? They're Democrats. They love the people. Well, it's money. It's the money, Lebowski. It's always the money. What am I saying? Well, check this out. Cory Booker, specifically, is... Cory Booker is the largest receiver of donations from the Democrats by Big Pharma in the Senate. Cory Booker, who is rumored to be considering a presidential run in 2020. Cory Booker, who got up and gave his testimony against Sessions being added as the Attorney General. Cory Booker, who called Sessions all manner of names, saying that he, was a racist and things of that nature. Cory Booker, who people like to call Obama light. Cory Booker received $268,000 in donations from Big Pharma. Okay? Cory Booker, overall, is the third highest recipient of pharmaceutical manufacturing donations. There are literally only two higher than him. You'll love to hear these names. The number 2, Mitch McConnell at $322,000. Number 1, Orrin Hatch at $342,000. Cory Booker is outpacing most Republicans in the Senate with getting pharmaceutical drug manufacturers donations. Bob Casey, number 5 with $250,000. Listen, I'm not a person who's unreasonable. Politics is a game about money, and that is a problem. I believe it was Sean King who said earlier this week that it was painful to see the Democrats who lost the House, Senate, President, and presidency, and who now control just 4 of 50 states as far as governors and state assemblies, state houses, be self-righteous about the fundamental changes the party needs to make. The beginning of these fundamental changes is getting rid of people like Cory Booker and Elizabeth Warren and Sherrod Brown and Maria Cantwell and Bob Casey. And while we're at it, Chuck Schumer, Maggie Hassan, and Tim Kaine. Why? Because those last 3 voted to confirm Mike Pompeo, who said openly he wants to have torture return to the use of tactics by the U.S. Torture, who we have seen proven. We've heard from both Democratic and Republican-leaning members of our military, members of our intelligence branches, say doesn't work. But these are Democrats saying this. These are Democrats saying this. So I say no more. At this time, you guys already know about my enjoyment of Wolfpack. I support what they're trying to do by getting money out of politics, by circumventing Congress and asking for a constitutional convention to vote on an amendment to remove the current method of campaigning and getting rid of money out of politics, making pure publicly funded elections that in fact do remove the influence of money on our politicians. If government is a place of ideas, and you believe that your ideology as a conservative, as a liberal, as a progressive, as a moderate, as a radical, whatever your affiliation is on the political spectrum, whatever your party affiliation is, libertarian, anarchist for that matter, if you believe your ideas are the best ideas, then I dare you, I defy you to put them up against the ideas of other people in this country on a fair platform and see who wins. The ultimate test of who should run this country should be based on not who has the most money to run ads on television, but rather who, when faced with the people they represent, can convince more of them to give their vote and thus their influence to our governance. The idea of the American government was to, in fact, say one man, one vote. And as flawed as the founding fathers are, those slave-owning racists as they were, the idea of democracy, if this is what you want, should be that the ideas of the people determine the direction of the country, not the money of the people. There is a reason why a merchant class emerged in previous governments. There is a reason why, when the people decide, movements that help the people are more influential than movements that help a particular class of people. Oligarchy is a failure. Capitalism in this new version of America is going to fail us. And I am a person who does not believe that democracy is the best way to make all things fair to all people. I am a person who has said before that every person is not intelligent enough in the situation. I don't mean that as in they're stupid. I mean that it is difficult to have the depth of mind to wade through all of the extra materials that are compounded on it. Why? Check this out. If you were to sit and watch basic television programming during the course, and this was done by a couple of different studies, during the course of an election season, even though we are required to give equal time to all candidates in a particular election if we allow for the discussion of one, you will find that media coverage will cover the most salacious. Why? Because media coverage, and I say media, not necessarily news, media coverage is based on what can bring them the most ratings and thus the larger audience. So, while the ads for Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump and Bernie Sanders and Ted Cruz and Rand Paul and Tim and all of these other people who have run for office in every state and jurisdiction, even though their actual advertising time may have been equal, the actual time the media spends covering them is not. Now, this does not necessarily include parodies of them. I don't expect Saturday Night Live to both equally attack Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump. I expect them to have a bias. But the presentation of media by news organizations, and yes, even though people love saying Fox News isn't news, it is treated as a news location. The time spent on people like Hillary Clinton by folks like the Young Turks, the time spent on the different candidates is not equal because there is a bias into what they represent, into what they present. CNN is no longer a non-biased source. CNN protects its corporate interest and thus gave Donald Trump, even when he was at the beginning the last in all polling, gave Donald Trump more coverage than the entire Republican field before he ever won a single vote. It is this mentality that has caused us to be in the situation we are in right now. And I say that knowing full well that this president is going to be disastrous for most of the country. I listened to Mark Lamont Hill on the Breakfast Club months ago saying that he was going to vote Green Party because he believed in Jill Stein. And they asked him, despite what he said about why he was voting, why would you do that and hand the country to Donald Trump? And he said, sometimes you have to be afraid to lose. And I agree with that mentality. Sometimes you have to be afraid to lose. In this country, we have allowed ourselves to get to the point where it is impossible for any divergence from our two-party system to gain a foothold. But that can be reversed. And Wolfpack, that's wolf-pack.org, can do that. But there is another group, and you're seeing them on the screen right now, and those are the Justice Democrats. The Justice Democrats are allowing you to sign up right now for a unified campaign of people who are outside the party and want to come in, people who are inside the party and want the party to become more progressive, to run against these corporatist Democrats, these Clinton-esque Democrats, who have taken the party down a path that will only lead us to more ruin, that will only lead us to more defeats. And I say us because until I find a party that is going to endorse my style of governance, which we can talk about in another show, but most of you already know what that is. Until we get there, we have to get rid of who's here. Do better, Democrats, because we require more of you. One of the things that people constantly talk about with politics is, yeah, I didn't vote because, it doesn't change anything. You believe that it doesn't change anything because no one represents you. And I'm here to say an uncomfortable truth to the people that decry those that don't vote. The people not voting is your fault. Because you have presented these people with no option that truly represents them. I watched Wisconsin and Michigan go to somebody who outsources every single part of his businesses. This is a man who printed those famous Make America Great Again hats in Bangladesh and China. They were only red because he literally had a surplus bunch of hats. He sold them, and then they got popular, so he got to make more. American jobs are being stolen by everything from robots to illegals, according to the Republican Party. But they have a unified front now under Trump. I dare you to be an alternative, because the current Democrats are not an alternative. Elizabeth Warren may be no friend to bankers, but she is certainly no longer someone you can trust to lead. Where has Elizabeth Warren been during these protests? I know where Bernie Sanders was. Where has Hillary Clinton been during these protests? I know where Bernie Sanders was. Where has Cory Booker been during these protests? I know where Bernie Sanders was. Where, oh, where are the Democrats? They're at home collecting their checks. You have nothing to lose but your change. Nothing to lose but these things that bind you to the archaic notion that the Democrats, who at one point seized on the idea of civil rights in the 60s, while the Republicans went running to a culture war and an ideological alignment with the extreme conservative, religious conservative right, you have nothing to lose but the same obstruction that has held back this country. Trust me. Listen, I know what you're thinking. Bernie Sanders is old. And yeah, Bernie Sanders is an older guy. He's probably not going to be the best person to lead the party as a presidential nominee in 2020. But he's got plenty to do before he's done. And there is a younger person, a younger woman, that also wants to help. You see, I've been talking about these Democrats that didn't, oppose all of Trump's nominees. But there is light. There is light. Until about late Tuesday, every single Trump appointment had been voted against by the Democratic senator from New York, Kristen Gillibrand. Now, to be fair, since then, she has voted for Nikki Haley to become the U.S. ambassador to the UN, and a couple other, cabinet level appointments. This is some light at the end of the tunnel. See, I understand you people who are out there saying, "Oh, well, I want Michelle Obama to run in 2020." I don't think Michelle Obama's going to run in 2020. And I hope she doesn't, just because I feel like she shouldn't have to deal with this crap. I watched people call her ape and monkey and tranny all through the 8 years of the Obamas in the White House, and I don't want her to have to deal with that again. If she feels like running, bless her. I support her wanting to run because she's a good person, but I'm not going to be following her unless her policy falls in line with what I'm into. Tulsi Gabbard, who was one of the deputies to the head of the DNC during the elections, who had a crisis of conscience and said in good conscience she could not continue with the DNC and what they were doing to screw over Senator Sanders, is another name that is floated as a potential 2020 candidate. She is definitely a woman who I will be supporting. And I look forward to seeing more and more names pop up in that fashion. But this slate of Democrats, their votes are public. You can see them. I don't care what your politics are. I don't. I really don't. I want you to go out and look at the people who represent you. And if you find that they are not representing your interests by the way they vote, because talk is very cheap, especially in government. Forget what their speeches say. What are their votes saying? Because their votes matter. Who gives them donations to their campaigns matter. The cushy jobs when they go in and out of politics matter. Who are your representatives beholden to? And I defy you to hold them accountable. The Justice Democrats are coming to do just that. The Just Us Democrats. These are not Democrats swayed by corporations and their money. These are not Democrats swayed by billionaire donor classes like the Kochs and the Soroses. These are Democrats that are swayed by the people. These are Democrats that are running on what we brought this nation together for. The grand experiment of democracy. But let me move on for a moment. Let me get into something that I think we all can appreciate. Recently, there have been two very large Twitter, and I know this is weird for me to be covering stuff on Twitter. There have been two very large Twitter storms when it comes to the Trump era White House. The first of which, of course, is the creation of these alt government agency Twitter profiles. You may remember that Donald Trump has banned all government agencies that deal with the environment from talking about the environment. They've also banned NASA from talking about climate change. And all these departments from properly tweeting things that are not approved beforehand by the president. Well, I am happy to hear and say that the National Park Service and a number of other agencies have taken to Twitter with alternative Twitter accounts that are not under the control of the president or the government. In fact, these accounts are able to post as they like because they are no longer the official accounts for these agencies. And in doing so, have continued to give us a number of insights as to what is going on with their agencies. Like I said, the National Park Service was the very first to do so, but they indeed are not the last. As I said, a number of them have done so, and as you can see here, these alt accounts have popped up. Usually if you just search alt and then the agency, you can find them, except for, of course, the National Park Service has done the Bad Hombre Lands account. They are resisting these tactics by the president to control what is being said. I am very happy to say that I am now following all of them on Twitter because it is a great time. We're getting real good science out there. But NASA, I want to talk about real quickly in particular because NASA has finally gone through with something that was happening beforehand, and they have made all of its scientific research that it's funds available for free over a website. It's all the research that it's funded with everything that it's all their results so far. So you are going to be able to see that. But this gets us to a bigger thing, and this is going to kind of get us to our last story in a very interesting fashion. This resistance is going beyond what you'd expect, I guess is the best way to put it. The resistance, as it turns out, has gotten to some very interesting Twitter accounts. This, as you can see, is at Rogue POTUS staff. Now, at Rogue POTUS staff is someone inside this White House that knows what's going on and is tweeting about everything that's going on. This is another one of those Twitter accounts you want to follow. They are ratting out all of the back and forth going on, a lot of the ineptitude and embarrassment that has run rampant so far in these first few days. And they are not alone. There was another whistleblower account that seems to have, gone dark because they were found out And I'm kind of sad about that, to be honest with you. Um, and it was called At White House Leaks. It is also run by someone who was a staffer, uh, but this account was locked out uh, after dropping some big news. A lot of people being fired, a lot of reaction. They, of course, talked about Trump's uh, flashing Fox News a signal that he was watching, and things of that nature. This has been a very interesting situation. I suggest you keep following them and keep up. I'm really happy about this. Their politics may not be the same as mine. Again, most of your politics are not the same as mine. But it's good to find out that they are going to be at least trying to get us some insight into this crazy situation inside the White House. And I don't think this is the end. I think more and more people are doing so. There's talk of the White House Fifth Column, a resistance movement inside the staffers that is not organized to protect everyone. Uh, and so that leads me to, of course, something that I do want to, of course, uh, turn your attention to. Uh, and that is that California's governor has taken to resisting Trump openly. You'll find this piece on CNN Politics, but he said Tuesday that he is ready for the battle ahead and that he will resist any attempts to, uh, come up with their alternative facts and persecute the citizens of California. That he is there to protect California, and indeed, Californians are protecting themselves. That's right. This Cal exit thing that we thought was just a bit of a joke last year. You'll recall we talked about this a little briefly before the election. The Cal exit organizers have now gotten permission to gather signatures for California to secede. Now, there is a number of other groups in other states nearby to California that have also said that they would like to get in on this. It appears that this may go from being something we kind of pie in the sky about to something that we actually need to talk about. It's California. It's the largest state as far as population is concerned. Every year, every presidential election, their votes basically don't matter because they're so large and they're so late. They are essentially neutralized by the small state strategy, and that's a combination of the evolution, of the Southern strategy, in which the Republican Party allied with evangelical Christians and the evangelical right, the religious right, to go after the Southern states and use that along with their the more racist and bigoted beliefs of those states to ensure them a larger voting bloc than the Democrats could easily keep inside the party with their focus on civil rights. And in doing so, they neutralize the largest state in the union when it came to population, while galvanizing the second place in Texas. So California has had to deal with this state of affairs for quite some time, and it seems that they have evolved to the point where they no longer wish to, hide their displeasure. Certainly, the governor taking his position is going to be one that could push the Cal Exit signature campaign to a very serious threat from the state. And I'm very interested in seeing where it goes. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean that I um, agree that states should start seceding from the Union. But in a situation where California is exiting, I'm certainly going to go there. Um, I It's difficult for me to enjoy these kinds of tactics. I know they're necessary. I can't enjoy them because it is uh, something about my patriotism, my actual patriotism, not that fake patriotism that says America is perfect, but my patriotism, which says that America is imperfect, to say that it's a good idea to break it up. But if you recall back to a much earlier episode, I talked about how I believe to a certain degree that America is experiencing its fall of Rome. Because it is not an actual empire, it could be different, but that it is experiencing a similar problem. You'll recall that at one point the Roman Empire splits into two, and you end up with the Eastern and Western empires, one essentially based out of Constantinople, the other, of course, based out of Rome itself. One of which becomes the Holy Roman Empire, and of course, the other later, it involves the Byzantines and later the Ottomans, and of course, were defeated in World War One, hundreds of years later. This idea that we are going to have to deal with states deciding maybe they don't want to be a part of this anymore is very reminiscent from a historical perspective of that. I know the mighty M10 is down there in uh, the chat right now, and he knows well exactly what I'm talking about here. Yes, the signatures they're gathering is not actually for the secession, but to remove the wording that says California is inseparable from the U.S. That would allow them to then secede. Thanks for pointing that out real quickly. But this entire notion of California exiting, in the same way that the Texas one wasn't taken seriously, but now is being taken seriously by California. Listen, there's one thing conservatives can't argue, that California could survive on its own. Texas has a lot of different situations. California could drag other states with it in a way that Texas wouldn't have. So there are things coming that I think you need to be aware of and waiting for. Now you might notice I'm a lot calmer at this point in the show. It's because we are winding down. We're in our last couple minutes of this live hour, power hour, if you will. And I wanted to kind of exit by kind of letting you guys know what's next. Keep looking out at these stories. We are, of course, always going to get back to them from time to time as they flare up. But we also are going to talk about some of the ramifications of these stories, especially with the Cali story and these Democrats. You're going to hear a lot more about the situation with, especially Elizabeth Warren, because she's personally pissed me off, but also about the Cory Bookers and apparently Chelsea Clinton, which I'll get to on another show because it's way too long of a story. But in this particular case, like I said, I want you guys to keep watching out. I want you guys to keep watching as the show continues in this new evolution. But as I said, on Monday, you're going to get a full version, both audio and for YouTube. And that'll include a complete The Wrath of Ruthless. We're going to talk a little bit about the social bits around the women's marches, the Muslim marches, all really of the anti-Trump and pro-Trump marches that have occurred over the last few weeks. And we're also going to get onto a little bit of a surprise subject as well that I won't be telling you guys about before the show. On Monday, you're also going to hear a Worse Into a Justice segment in brief. We're going to just kind of talk to the guys that are over at weekendlife.com. That's WKNDLIFE.com. We're going to talk to those guys for a quick minute as well. Just a little update on what's going on with them, games they're playing, looking forward to. Of course, I want you guys to check out Cheater's Guide to the Universe. That's over on my personal channel. That's ARAKHAN816. And that's Cheater's Guide to the Universe. We cover We go through some playthroughs, some different games. We're going to talk some games over there, but that's not really a regular thing I'm going to do there. But look out for that kind of stuff as well. We do a interesting playthrough of WWE's 2K17 over there called Mid City Wrestling. Check that out. But I want to say it's good to be back. I have missed you guys. It's been so long. Yes, I live another scar. I miss you guys. I'm happy to be back. Sad to say goodbye to the folks that have moved on to other projects. We're gonna have them back from time to time, of course. They're still friends of the show. We're gonna do another ID series thing coming up here soon as well, and we're gonna talk the Oscars as well coming up for next week. But for now, I am the Ruthless Wonder, not A Ruthless Wonder. You have been listening to the Wrath of Ruthless, brought to you by Words Don't Do It Justice. We are either in the live hour on YouTube, or you're checking us out in our complete version over on Monday on SoundCloud. Of course, also posted on our Facebook pages. You can check those out. You can see they're on the sidebar if you're watching the video. But you can check us out on Facebook. We've got, of course, the different pages for Words Don't Do It Justice, The Wrath of Ruthless, and of course my page, The Ruthless Wonder. But we also have our fan community, and that's on Facebook at group/WDDI Justice League. Shout out to all our Justice League members who've come in the chat today. Of course, I want to thank all the Justice League members who continue to support us. But of course, you can check out our reviews and our affiliates over at weekendlife.com. That's WKNDLIFE.com. You can purchase our shirts on TeePublic. That's just TeePublic/314 Publishing. You can buy shirts, you can buy coffee mugs and things of that nature. That supports us. That gets us the ability to do more stuff for you and some other cool things that we've got coming up. We are not on Patreon, but we will be thinking about that some more. We may do that, we may not. But for now, I want to say you guys goodbye. And of course, if you're watching this on Monday, I'll see you guys in the next section. Bye-bye.